Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining our presentation this afternoon, Money Management for Elders and Their Caregivers. And for those of you that are watching this on our YouTube channel, thank you for stopping by and getting to know a little bit more about the different ways that you can help either manage money for yourself as you age or for caregivers. A little bit about myself and my colleagues. My name is Migdalia Gomez. I'm the AVP of Community Engagement. I'm joined with Sarah Scruggs and Dominique Vergia, our community engagement specialist. And the three of us will be here just to give you some information on different money management tips. But before we get started, I wanted to give you a little overview of who we are at the Harvard University Employees Credit. We are Harvard's not-for-profit financial cooperative, and we're really here to have one big mission, which is to help our community, help our members. And we are very similar to a bank, but the biggest difference is that we do things better. We have better value, service, business model, and are better for the community. And the way that we can be better is because we are not for profit, meaning that any profit that we do make, we reinvest in the form of lower rates of lower rates on loans, higher rates on savings, and really overall just better quality service. Anyone that is a part of BIDMC or BILH within BIDMC and parts of BILH, you are eligible to become members of the credit union. Specifically, I know we have folks from Mount Auburn Hospital and BIDMC that are joining, and you are eligible to become members. That's all that I will say at the moment about the credit union, but if you want to learn more, you're welcome to go onto our website, huecu.org, and you can learn more about becoming a member. And once you're a member for life, even if you're no longer working at your current hospital. There's a lot that goes into planning for elder care. As a result, I want to just start off by just setting the expectations as to what we are going to cover and what we're not going to be able to cover. But before we even get into that, I want to just take a moment and acknowledge that we are speaking and we're speaking of people. We're speaking either of ourselves or we're speaking of those that we care for. And this means that these are people. It means that we are not just dealing with numbers, we're not just dealing with documents, we are dealing with individuals. And that is the first thing that we recommend. The first step is to have a conversation with your loved ones. Find out from them how do they want to be cared for as they age. If you are the elder, communicate that. How do you want to be cared for? And that's another thing too, is all of us will go through this process either one way or another. Either you will be the elder that's being cared for, or you may be caring for an elder at some point. So let's take a moment to sort of humble ourselves with that as well and think of this is not just about caring for others. It's also thinking about, at some point, someone will be caring for us and what do we want that to be. We are going to go through a good amount of information today, and we are going to share numerous resources. We will email you the presentation, so you will get a copy of the presentation and also the recording. Additionally, you will get our email contact information. So if there are other questions in the future, you will receive that. And we did go ahead and mute everyone, but you're more than welcome to submit questions via the questions panel because we are here to help you. Our goal is to help answer any questions that you may have. And if we're unable to answer the question during the presentation, we will do the research and get back to you at a later point. This is your presentation and we're here to help you. So I mentioned that the first step is having that conversation about sort of setting the expectation with the one that is being cared for, and also thinking about, if you are the caregiver, thinking about what would the ideal situation look like for you? What impact will that have in your day-to-day? But there are many different pieces that we should think about and have as part of this conversation. Caring for elders, though this presentation is going to focus on the financial piece of it, the money management, there's the medical care, there's the emotional well-being, and those are very important pieces that all should be thought of collectively. Medical care, such as the costs for doctors, for home health care, nursing homes, that is a piece that we won't get into right now. We unfortunately just don't have that expertise. As you know, as employees of hospitals, you have that expertise, and we recommend reaching out to resources that may be available to you through your current employer, or just through the caregivers, the elders medical team, to see what resources are available to be able to provide the best medical care for those individuals. Then there's the emotional well-being piece. Caring for someone or even being cared for can have an impact on your emotional well-being. That for many of us, it could be stressful to have to change our day-to-day schedules to take care of someone else. And you may feel guilty sometimes for that, or it may feel overwhelming. There are many different emotions that could be associated with caring for someone else. We want everyone to know that that is normal. We don't want anyone to feel bad about feeling that way. And we do recommend seeking support. There are many different resources out there. Employers have employee assistance program, which I am sure you have within your current companies. And then additionally, you also have different religious groups and different cities that may provide additional support. Let's take a moment now and talk a little bit about estimating financial needs. So there are different financial needs that, just as we age, additional costs that are associated. Now, some of the costs that are associated, we are going to cover here, but know that there are many others. So this is just the beginning, and we really want to say too, if you leave here with some questions, that is okay, because we want you to have questions, so things to consider. One of the costs are the medical bills. Now, with age, most our medical bills are going to increase in cost. That is just unfortunately just part of what happens when we age. There are costs that there's some research that was done a couple years ago, but still fairly. This was as of 3 years ago. Some research that was done that for a couple that's in retirement, they spend, and this is retiring at age 65, they spend about 135,000 for the cost for the men, and then for the women, it's about 150,000 in just medical costs alone. And I say that I don't want that to be, I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed by it. I don't want anyone to feel concerned and stressed. This is why you're here. This is why you're going to have start the conversations. You're going to start asking the questions like, what insurance should I take? What doctors should I be seeing? What resources are available? But the key here is to realize that as we age, additional parts of our income may need to be put aside towards medical bills. And sometimes it's even preparing for it in advance. Then there's the piece of entertainment, travel, and hobbies. A lot of times when we're thinking about estimating financial needs, I'm going to go through all of these categories, but it's really taking time to think about what is the lifestyle that we anticipate having when we are older. And throughout today's presentation, as you've seen, I'll say you or the caregiver, because really these are for both you and or the caregiver. But what is the lifestyle? Many times those that we're caring for, or as we age, we may have a vision of, okay, once I retire, I'm going to maybe travel more, or you know what, I don't want to travel. I want to stay in my house, or I want to relocate, or I want to update my home. All of these are costs to start thinking about and planning for. Even some costs such as possible, maybe you're thinking of staying in the same home, but if you do stay in the same home, then you may need to renovate that home. So for example, there are individuals that sometimes have to, if the home is multiple floors, they may need, and the bedrooms upstairs, as the family ages, they may need to switch, and instead of having the bedroom be upstairs, there may be renovations that need to happen so that the bedroom can be downstairs, or maybe to have a chair lift so that it helps with accessibility. There are ramps that sometimes need to be added to homes. So these are all costs to consider, and realize that it may not necessarily all happen at once, but it may happen with time. For some, travel is going to be a big component. I know, especially during these times with pandemics, a lot of our elders have been unable to travel. So that is something that maybe in the future, as things get better, people will be able to consider and want to do more traveling. And that's going to be additional costs as well. And then you have potential costs for legal, and legal costs we'll talk about briefly, but for some of the other for some of the costs such as legal, we'll talk a little bit more about estate planning as well, but there are other costs as well, such as funeral costs. And unfortunately, those are one of the costs that we never really want to think about. It's not exciting. It's not something that you're like, oh, yeah, let's talk about funeral costs. And I say that to make it clear. Some of these conversations may be challenging and they will bring up emotions. And that's why I'm going to go back to what we said earlier about support groups and making sure that you're caring for yourself mentally and those around you as well. Because some of these conversations are hard and the elder sometimes may be hesitant to have those conversations, or you may not know quite how to bring it up. So seek different resources. As I said, the Employee Assistance Program also usually have very good resources on how to have these conversations. Additionally, there are funeral, like I said, the funeral cost. It is usually estimated to be around $10,000, sometimes minimum. And I know that that's not a number that most of us are excited to think about. Like, oh, $10,000, that's great. And I do apologize for saying the word exciting, and I don't want it to come off in a negative way. But again, I just want to make it known that it is uncomfortable to speak about, especially during these very hard times that we've gone through. And one of the things that, I know many of us probably in our lives, unfortunately, have experienced sudden deaths. And as we know, grieving for someone is already hard enough. Trying to think about the costs makes it that much harder. So we really recommend starting to do all the thinking as much as possible ahead of time, having a plan in place. So when the person that we love passes, we're giving ourselves the ability to focus on the healing and giving them the memorials that they need and not be so focused on the financial piece of it. When we're thinking about these financial needs too, want to think about it, who is covering the financial needs? Is it just you? Is it the elder and you as a caregiver? Are there other family members that can also do this as well? Or is it mostly going to be on the elder? Is it mostly going to be on you? Are friends going to be able to help? What are the resources, the financial resources that are going to be available to help? And there are many different sources to try to pay for these expenses, and everyone's situation will be different. For some of us, we may have personal funds set aside. This could be potential retirement assets that maybe were put aside. It could be a different, savings account. In the case of someone possibly selling their home, maybe it's as part of downsizing, they put some money aside for these expenses. Not everyone is able to have some of those funds. For some individuals, they may need to borrow, but borrowing will become a little bit trickier, especially if it's the elder trying to borrow for themselves, because they may not have the funds that are required, or excuse me, they may not have the income that a lender requires. Oops, sorry, I think I'm hearing some background noise. So I just want to make sure everyone is muted just to make sure that you folks are able to hear me. Apologize for that background noise that we're hearing. But elders may not qualify for a loan because they don't have income that's coming in. So by not having that income, they may not qualify. So they may need a co-signer. And in some cases, that may be the caregiver. And that is an important conversation to have as a family. Who is going to, if there are funds that are going to be needed, there are loans that are going to be taken, who's going to take those loans are. Credit card debt credit card debt, especially as we age, can add additional stress, and we don't want that for anyone. So it's another reason to have the other conversations. There are many times that a loan may be more beneficial because the credit card will have significantly higher interest rates. Then you also have government programs. Now, with government programs, you don't quite have as many options available to you depending on your income. And this is something that, unfortunately, we think a lot of us have heard, oh, Social Security it can help. But as we saw recently, the age to be able to qualify for Social Security is potentially going to go up. There are a lot of changes going on with the program. And the reason for that is that there's not enough funding to take care of people because of the amount that people are eligible to receive. So right now, and this is as of 2022, for those that retired when it was their full retirement age, which is what is looking to change. But for some individuals, let's say their full retirement age was 67 years. And at 67, that's when they decided to seek their Social Security retirement funds. That's going to be a cost of, that means that annually they're receiving $40,140. And I don't know about you, but $40,000, that typically is not enough, especially given where we live. If for those that are in the Massachusetts area, it's fairly expensive area. So for folks that are looking to retire, if you don't have the funds in additional funds in a retirement account or other savings vehicle, that $40,000 may not be enough to cover the expenses that are associated with being older, such as those medical expenses, potential relocations, or just the quality of life, the ability to be able to travel, pick up additional hobbies. And that is if an individual waited until the full retirement age. Now, for someone that decided to, and there are many reasons that people may have to do this. People may need funds at an earlier age, but you can choose to take your retirement funds from Social Security earlier than your full retirement age. So in the case of that example for the 67-year-old being at full retirement age, if they didn't wait the 5 years to 67 and chose to have access to those funds at 62 years of age, they would only be getting $28,368 a year. So that's a $12,000 difference. And that is a $12,000 difference that is never going to be increased. So yes, there is an increase in Social Security income year to year, but it's a cost of living adjustment. It's typically around 1%, 1 to 2%. This past year in 2021 was the biggest increase it was a 5.9% increase, but typically you're looking at about a 1% increase, meaning that if I choose to, at 62, access my Social Security benefits and get 28,000, yes, next year I might get a little bit more, 29, 30, etc. But I'm never going to get as much as if I had waited until I was 67 or whatever my new full retirement age is. This is important because just like Medicare, which is also available, which is available when you turn 62, with Medicare, a lot of times people will think, well, I don't have to pay for any medical expenses as I age. The federal government has Medicare, I'll qualify. Yes, you do qualify, but that doesn't mean you don't have a payment that's due. So there are different components or different parts of Medicare, and I won't go into all of it. There are many different resources that will do a much better job explaining it. But the takeaway here is that with Medicare, you may have to have a monthly payment or part of essentially almost like your fee. Not, I don't want to call it a fee, but ultimately that's sort of what it is. So which will be based off of your income. So for many people, yes, they'll get healthcare coverage through Medicare, but they may be paying $100, $200, sometimes more. Again, depends on your income and what type of coverage or additional coverage you want. So it's not always free. There are some people that will qualify for free Medicare, but not everyone. And there are state programs. If you're a veteran, there are also additional programs. But the takeaway here is that as you're thinking about how to pay for expenses, do the research early. I'm going to show you a website where you can go and see what is available to you as an elder or for the elder that you're caring for, just to see what options they have from the government and to get a more realistic idea of what it's going to cost and then also the benefits that are going to be received. And then you have different private financing options. There are long-term care policies. There's the option of doing a reverse mortgage, different life insurance policies, different trusts. These can get fairly complicated. I would recommend speaking to a professional. There are many different professionals that focus on these, and I would make sure that they're fiduciary, meaning that they are focused on what is best for the elder and not what is best for them as the professional. This means that they are not looking to just make money off of an elder, not looking to just sell a product. As a fiduciary, they have a legal responsibility to provide the best advice, regardless of if that advice isn't as profitable to that expert. And I will be able to mention in the upcoming, slide here, you'll see there's this resource called benefitscheck.org. And this is where you can get an idea of, it's from the National Council on Aging, which is a wonderful resource. Sarah will talk a little bit more about that shortly. But the National Council on Aging does provide much more detail on all the different types of benefits. There are so many that are out there. There are benefits for housing, for tax, for income, if you need income assistance. And that's why I said at the beginning, I know that some of these costs are, it can be overwhelming. And like I said, no one's excited to think about, oh, I have to pay all this money. But there are many resources, and that is what I want everyone to leave here feeling empowered. I hope you're taking notes, and I hope that one of the things that you're doing is having a sort of a little bit of a checklist. And I hope that this website is one that I won't feel offended if you're doing it now or you do this at some point, maybe during the next couple of days. Just take a look, see what resources are available. And what's really good about this resource is that you can also put the zip code, and this is especially helpful for those that are thinking about relocating. So if at some point you're considering moving to a different state, or the elder that you care for is in a different state, this is a really good way to help without having to necessarily be an expert as to, okay, I don't live in that part in Florida. I don't live in South Carolina. I don't know what's available. That's okay. You can go here, and it's a really good starting point. One of the pieces that is going to be beneficial, and this is a lot of what we're saying will also be beneficial regardless of what age what age bracket you fall into, or regardless of if you're taking care of someone, this could be helpful for you to understand as well, is just the getting paperwork in order. Working at a financial institution, sometimes we see, and I've seen this as well, people not knowing what accounts they have open, where do they have retirement funds, what debt they may have. And this is just the nature of the lives that we live. There's a lot going on there, especially think about the career of someone that's been working for 40 plus years. That's multiple jobs, that's multiple accounts. If they've moved, they could have maybe had multiple banks. So knowing what accounts are open is going to be a big help as you are managing your finances as an elder or for the elder that you're caring for. Unfortunately, as we age, for most of us, our memories may go. And, even for those of us that have the best memories, how many of us haven't had to reset a password? How many of us haven't had to think, oh, wait, where is that account? So having record of what accounts are open, knowing the ownership level too. If my mom has an account that is her primary checking and I'm caring for her as she ages, I will not have access to that account unless she adds me to the account. Now, there are many times that may not be the best case. Yes, she's my mother. Sarah will talk substantially about fraud. I'm not looking to take my mother's monies, but there are times that depending on those in that person's circle, you may not want to add someone else to the account, or you may only want to add view only access to be able to track the account, make sure that the elder isn't being taken advantage of financially. So again, we go back to these conversation pieces, trying to have the conversation, especially before the elder or before the family gets to a point that they have to intervene to help with managing the financing. Just having the conversation, okay, at what point would it make sense to add someone else to the account? Or does the money need to go into a trust? What are the different options that make sense? There are estate planners that, estate attorneys or estate planners that are licensed. This is what they study, this is what they do, which can really help with the titling of accounts. They can help with power of attorney so that if the elder is unable to make a financial choice, or even if they are, if they need assistance, this is something that someone else that has that power of attorney can do. And there are different levels of access. There are also different ways to title accounts so that when the elder passes, the funds become more readily available to help pay for, expenses, or if it's for inheritance. There's so many different ways that titling can impact how the finances will go, or how quickly access to those finances will be made available. You want to, again, talk to an estate planning attorney. There are many resources out there to find ones that are credible. Someone that does not, a lawyer that practices real estate law, they're not going to have the same level of expertise as an estate planner. A CPA is not going to have the same level of expertise as an estate planner. So you definitely want to make sure you're seeking someone that has that expertise. There are many resources that you can do estate planning online, but really, I would still recommend sitting down, speaking with a professional. The employee assistance programs through your hospitals, I know for us through at Harvard, they usually will have resources so they can put you in contact with an estate planner, at least to get started and have that initial conversation. And for those of us that may not quite know what are the debts or loans that are associated with us as elders or the elder that we're caring for, pulling a credit report is a really good starting place. Sarah will probably speak to this a little bit more, but unfortunately, sometimes what we will see is that people, and unfortunately many times it's family members, will unfortunately scam or take advantage of, unfortunately, their elders, and sometimes apply for a loan and have them co-sign. And many times those that are caring for the elders won't know until they pull a credit report, or unfortunately maybe until after the elder passes and the lenders go after their assets to pay for that outstanding debt. So pulling a credit report is just really important because it's going to give you a snapshot of what debt is associated with that individual's social security number. I talked a little bit about this before, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this now. I want to make sure I give Sarah enough time to talk about the resources and information that she has, but I just really high level work with professionals that are qualified. What Sarah and I are doing here is really a very holistic, very high level look at things to consider, people to contact, because all of these are very specific to your family situation, your household situation. The estate planning lawyer can, you can talk to them as to, is there, what is the plan? Are you looking to leave funds for family members, or if there aren't any family members, is it going to charity? What is the breakdown? How do accounts have to be titled? Estate planners can walk you through all of that. EAP programs have a lot of good benefit resources that are available and benefits to help you. But the key is always remember, and you can ask, and they have to provide this information to you. Are they fiduciaries? Are they doing what is best for the elder? Or is that professional doing what's best for their pockets? So you always want to ask, are they a fiduciary? And that is one of the takeaways here. Work with a professional who is a fiduciary. Now I'll turn it over now to Sarah, who's going to talk to us a little bit more about protecting our elders from financial abuse.
Thank you, Migdalia. Hi, everybody. It's good to be here with you to talk a little bit more about this subject. And unfortunately, a lot of the subject matter that we talked about today is hard and it's heavy. And like Migdalia said at the beginning, know that there is support out there. And that's something that I'm going to reiterate multiple times throughout my presentation. my portion of the presentation today, talking about protecting elders from financial abuse. There are a few things that we can do to make sure that our elders are safe. Yes, but most of these things I highly recommend for anyone to take advantage of when we're thinking about protecting ourselves from financial abuse as well. And just to give you a stat, last year, well, I guess 2020, elders were victims of financial abuse and lost $36.5 billion to this type of scam. And that is something that's very haunting for a lot of people. And there are a lot of reasons for it. But this is something to remind yourself that this is happening to everyone around us. And that's not just elders, there's also many different kinds of victims of financial abuse and scams, especially. Account alerts is a great way to remind yourself and set these up on your financial institution's mobile banking side or online banking side, excuse me, where you can say, anytime my card is used, I need to know about it. And that way, if there is fraud or if somebody gets your information, you're able to immediately report that. And this is really one of the first steps in making sure that you're protecting yourself. Setting credit freezes can be a good thing as well. A credit freeze used to be a couple of, a bit of a fee, I'll say that. And now it is free to set a credit freeze. And what a credit freeze is this is the opportunity for you to create a PIN number for your credit for anyone to take a loan out in your name. They would need you to provide that PIN number. So it just adds an additional layer of protection, and it lasts on your account until you decide to take it off. So this can be a really good thing to add to an elder's account so that they're able to, especially if they're not getting loans all the time or new credit cards. A credit freeze is normally a pretty good thing for folks who don't plan on applying for a lot of loans or anything of that nature. So I do recommend setting a credit freeze, not only for elders, but if you're kind of past that point of applying for a lot of loans, this is a good step to take to make sure no one is getting a hold of your information and unfortunately using that information to then take out money in your name. Reviewing and shredding financial documents, making sure that you're keeping up with what financial documents have come in the mail, what things they need to shred, and maybe what things are okay to just throw in the trash. But anything that has your personal information on it should be shredded. And something that I do recommend too is making sure that you have a safe deposit box either at your financial institution or maybe post office. Wherever in your area may have those safe deposit boxes for keeping up with those most important records and making sure that those are in a safe place that you can always get to no matter if there's anything that happens to your house, but these safe deposit boxes would be safe in a place outside of that. Your personal information, I mean, I can't say this enough. I don't think anyone can. Not giving out your personal information over the phone. Unfortunately, so many elders struggle with figuring out, what is real? What is the bank actually calling me for versus what is not real? And so just making sure to be stingy with that information. We're not handing it out everywhere. Not rushing into financial decisions. If you're making a legitimate financial decision, nobody who's working with you will rush you. Because as professionals, we believe that it's important, number one, to give everyone within the conversation time to digest the information and make an informed decision. There is no need for us to rush into any decisions like you don't need to complete this in the next hour or the next 24 hours. Take time to think about it. I always tell people just step away from the situation and maybe go on a walk. Just step away for just a couple of minutes and then come back to the situation and really assess what would be best for you. you can sign up for FTC fraud alerts on ftc.gov, and you can sign up for those that are specific to your area as well, which I think is really great, because you can see if there have been any latest scams or maybe um, any type of phishing that's going on in your area. We've Unfortunately, we see this a lot with scams that have happened at multiple places in a town or a city, and those are a lot of times very coordinated and focused on a certain maybe zip code or area. So signing up for those FTC fraud alerts can keep you in the loop of what's happening in your neighborhood or wherever that elder may be living. What are some signs to think about? Because like McDowell said, it is one of the most undetectable things when it comes to elder financial health, unfortunately, because about 80% of financial abuse towards elders is done by a trusted individual. And this is, it's devastating. I think we can all agree on the webinar today that it is devastating to think that somebody that the elder trusts and maybe loves is doing this to them. But a lot of people are put in bad situations. So how can we best help the victims in these cases, which are elders? If there were any unusual ATM withdrawals, maybe your elder doesn't normally go to the ATM, but they seem to be taking out a lot of cash. This is normally the sign that someone is telling them, you need to go get this money and give it to me. And really just looking at patterns. And that's really what I want. I want you to see through this slide is that if there becomes a new pattern in that elder's life that wasn't there previously, um, or that they're feeling uneasy or anxious around money topics. I think for most of our lives, we're so used to being anxious and overwhelmed with money. But this shouldn't be a new thing that happens for elders. So I really just recommend, you know, keeping an eye on it. Are there unusual withdrawals? Are they constantly saying, well, I needed cash for this, I needed cash for this, I needed cash for this? More than likely, they don't need hundreds of dollars in cash for something, unless it's something you may know about. Purchasing of gift cards. I'm going to give you an example of my grandmother. Just a few weeks ago, we were on the phone and she was saying, Sarah, I got this crazy call the other day. And of course, everyone comes to me with any of their financial issues in my family because now I'm the financial person, right? So she called me and she said, Sarah, I got this crazy call the other day. They called my home phone, and they said, is this Miss Chambliss? And then they asked, did you know that your grandson is in trouble? And this is really difficult because more than likely a lot of these scams or phishing attempts will play on emotions. And so, of course, the first thing you hear when you hear that somebody you love is in trouble, what can I do to help? And so the next thing they said was that he's in jail, and he needs uh, gift cards to get bailed out. And although this sounds a little bit silly, in the heat of the moment, you can make a decision that may not be best. So if there's a lot of purchasing of gift cards, this could be a sign that there is some type of scam or fraud happening to your elder. And like I said, more than likely, they're going to be playing on their emotions to get these things done. Unplanned wire transfers. We've heard the story. We've seen the story in documentaries online, but a lot of times people will get scammed online. Again, playing on their emotions. If it's somebody saying like, "Hey, I love you," I need to move across country. Why don't you send me $10,000 so I can do this? And I know it sounds crazy talking about it right now and saying it now, but because we all are kind, generous people, this can happen more often than we'd like to think. So any unplanned wire transfers that you see on your elder's account, um, especially if they're going out of state or somewhere not close by. Sudden unpaid bills. If your loved one has always been paying bills, or they're always in this kind of routine of paying those. I know my grandmother is always in a routine of sitting down on a certain day and paying all of her bills. Make sure that those unpaid bills aren't a sign of somebody taking advantage and maybe saying, you know, you can write the check to me and then I'll write that check to the power company, right? We want to make sure that those things aren't going unpaid and that our elder is taken care of. Like I said, so much of financial abuse is playing on elders' emotions in their care for the people that they care about the most. And so you'll see this anxious feeling or the sense of rushness to make these decisions. And then probably the most I guess devastating, I would say, on this list is alterations of wills or power of attorneys or trusts. Um, this especially happens with elders who maybe are being cared for by a family member, and that family member says, you know, why do we even have so and so person in the will? They're not here to help or not here taking care of you like I am. Why don't we just change that? And unfortunately, this does happen more than we'd like to know. And this is why you need that trusted team of advisors that Migdalia spoke about earlier. As someone who is a great attorney, will be able to hopefully read the emotional state of the elder and let everyone involved know about this change, or making sure that everyone is cared for within that situation. So just one of the biggest signs of elder financial abuse is that emotional piece, that there is maybe something off about their usual day to day, making sure that they feel comfortable speaking with those in their circle who are trusted, and saying if they ever feel um, like something that they've done is wrong or bad. A lot of times elders can be embarrassed about falling victim to some of these things. And so making sure that you create an open space for them to speak about this without feeling judgment from those around them. That is also really important when we start thinking about how do we make this right going forward, is making sure they feel like they won't be judged or that they won't be made fun of or embarrassed for what they've done, because it can happen to anyone. And we should all be empathetic of that. Some things that you should do if you suspect elder financial abuse. The first thing is always speak with the elder, because a lot of times potential abuses, nothing can really be done with them until the elder confirms that this is happening to them. And although that is unfortunate, it is just part of our own autonomy, right? And part of being an adult is that we have that opportunity to say whether we believe that something rises to the need of speaking with authorities. So speak with elders and just see if this is something that they'd like to take further, or that they'd like to talk more about with somebody who can possibly maybe get their money back or help them moving forward. Reporting potential abuse is really important. Even if you're not confirmed that this has happened to your elder, or the elder doesn't want to pursue anything further, reporting this abuse can help those in the future, maybe who aren't your elder in particular, but keeping those in our community safe. So report the abuse to their financial institution, making sure that they know what has happened. And we see this at the credit union. It is part of our protocol, and we do have a protocol for it. Reporting it to their lawyers, just letting them know what's happened, so that they are aware and they know of any, if anything odd comes across their desk, they'll know what may be happening. And then also others in their network, making sure that folks are looking out for them. Contacting local authorities and social services in your area. And this is so important so that others in our community are taken care of, and not falling victim to the same things that our elder may have or ourselves have done. So contacting those local authorities and just letting them know what has happened, especially if you're able to give them information on this person, so that they're able to really thoroughly make sure that others are doing okay. This next slide has some good information about national resources available. So whether you are here in Massachusetts, right down the street, or if you are across the country, these can be good resources for you. Of course, AARP, some great discounts at AARP, but also good information about elder care and those types of things. The National Institute on Aging, NIA, actually has quite a bit of good information on those folks with dementia or Alzheimer's. The NIA does a lot of studies and work and research on dementia and Alzheimer's. And so if you are an elder or taking care of an elder that suffers from those things, this could be a good place to go to just learn more and receive resources. The National Council on Aging, just like Migdalia said previously, the benefits checkup is on the National Council of Aging, and they have great resources there for making sure that you're taking the right steps. They have very detailed information on things like what should you say in an estate planning meeting with an attorney, because those are all meetings that we normally don't have to go through often, hopefully, but there's something that we need to be prepared for. And then, of course, the Social Security Administration, checking in on those benefits, knowing when it's coming, where it's coming from, so that you can be prepared. Some local resources or state resources that we see here in Massachusetts, we have a pretty wonderful website for seniors in the Commonwealth, and they're talking about where are the communities that they could live in, especially if you're looking to move your elder that you're caring for, maybe closer to you. You can come here and look at different licensed resources. I really recommend coming here to look for those licensed and certified places for your elder to live, because we know that it is so important that they've been checked out, because we want our elders to be safe. And there's other things about just staying engaged in the community. Where are the senior centers in the new place they're moving? Those things are extremely important too. So this is a great website for that. Like we've said throughout this presentation, you're not taking this on alone. Whether it is you making this life transition or it is someone you're caring for, there is support out there, whether it be from your financial institution, like us at the credit union, or through support groups. Maybe it's through a group of friends that are all going through this thing together. Support is out there and available for you. So I just highly recommend not insulating yourself, but reaching out to those so that this transition is much smoother. Piece of support that we have at the credit union is a partner that we have, Green Path Financial Wellness. They are a nonprofit that works one-on-one with folks at the credit union who are members, or if you're attending this PowerPoint, you are welcome to call Green Path, but they offer free credit, budget, and COVID-19 counseling, as well as federal student loan counseling and debt repayment counseling. So if those are things that you'd like to speak with someone about, a certified, accredited advisor on, GreenPath is a great place to start. Like I said, it is free for you all, but know that the credit union does pay for this service. So you're not just calling into some random free company, you're calling into a trusted, vetted partner of the credit union. Blog at the credit union that is free for anyone. You do not have to be a member to read through it. Of course, you can go to blog.huecu.org and you can sort by topic. So you can see categories like elder care. We do have an elder care section of that website. So I highly, highly recommend just taking a look, seeing what's out there. and blogs ranging from your typical budgeting, credit, all the way to things more specialized like elder care. So hopefully you can take a few minutes to read through that. You can also subscribe to our blog and you'll get a monthly email with updates from that month. So that's a great way to keep up without having to check the website. Thank you, Migdalia, for putting this in the chat. We do have a survey. We'd love to hear your feedback. We are always working to get better here at the credit union. And so any feedback you have on this session would be wonderful. It's a 5-question survey, so it won't take you all day or even the rest of your lunch. But if you could fill that out for us, that would be wonderful, and we would absolutely appreciate it. Course, this is all a general overview. We are not your individual tax or legal advisor. Hopefully you have individuals, accredited, certified fiduciary individuals who are doing that work for you. And all of these things are examples only. So we appreciate you coming to our webinar today. And I hope if you have any questions, we still have some time for a few questions. If there's anything that you feel like you want more information on, or maybe we didn't speak to today in particular, if you could put that in the questions box. It's either on the right-hand side of your screen or at the top navigation, all depends on how you logged in. But you can put a question in here and it is anonymous, so know that other attendees wouldn't be seeing that you submitted this question. So if you do have questions, you can put them there. We'll stay on for about 20 more seconds just to see if there's any additional information here or questions that you may have. Perfect. I'm glad that this was informational for you all and that there is some good information, some good takeaways, hopefully, that you'll be having from this presentation. But some of the things that I think about as next steps, I always like to do this before I end my presentations. Next steps, it's time to look through those documents this weekend. I think it's a great time to do it, especially if it's a rainy day. It may be a good day to do that. But then getting a list together of people you need to talk to next, whether that be an attorney or a financial advisor, but getting a list of folks you need to talk to next, and then setting up account alerts on your bank account, as well as anyone in your care, setting up those account alerts so that you know what money is being taken out of your account and what money is being put in your account. So a few next steps for you all to take with you today as we wrap up. I don't see any additional questions, so thank you so much for joining us today, and we appreciate you taking the time to be here. And like we've said, you are not alone in this process, and we are so glad we can be a partner with you in this. We hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you soon at one of our other presentations. Thanks, everyone.